Welcome everybody to the 24th Made in Prague Film Festival being held in London, organized by the Czech Centre. We're very pleased to open the season with Slávek Horák's new film, Havel. It's a film which has attracted obviously a great deal of attention, and you will have just, of course, watched it, I hope. And there's now an opportunity to discuss, or for me to, at any rate, to ask some questions of Slávek as a backup to the film. Obviously, it would be nice if we could be doing this live and there was an audience here, but I've tried to think of some of the questions that audiences might like to ask. My name is Peter Hames. I have seen the film twice, but I still have quite a few questions. Slávek, of course, made his debut with a film called Home Care, which was shown at the Made in Prague Festival 2 or 3 years ago, and won a great deal of international acclaim and also many Czech film awards. This is your second feature film, and I'm wondering, your first feature film was about basically a care worker. Here you've completely changed register and moved on to a biopic, and a biopic of somebody who is very difficult to make a film about, I would say. Many of the films about Havel have all concentrated on politics. Yours is very different. Why did you tell the personal story?
Well, when I search for a story for a film, I always search for interesting main character. So about me, it's always about the character study, and the story comes second, and the story is there just to serve the main character, just to reveal something about the main character. So in my first film, the main character was inspired by my mother. So it was sort of very authentic, and because my mother was also a home care nurse. So I took the character of my mother and built a story about it. And for me, quite naturally, for the next film, I was looking for another inspirational person that I sort of know or that we have in Czech Republic. And the next inspirational person for me was Václav Havel, after my mom. So for me, it was like a natural development. It was not a change of direction. It was just going bigger and broader. And but also with Václav Havel, what interested me most was his transformation from playwright to dissident to president. And because for me, the movies are most interesting when I see the main character's journey, the transformation. So I thought that instead of doing Havel as a battle of opposing political views on issues, I would rather do it as a battle of his inner flaws and inner sort of goings, and focus on his personal development.
Well, that must be quite difficult. I mean, I have read Michael Zandovsky's biography of Havel, and that deals with both the politics and the personal life. But much of what you dealt with, I don't think was even in Zandovsky. So how did you discover the inner reality, or did you have to make it up?
Well, Michal Žantovský's book is great. I mean, it was a very valuable source of information to us, and it covers Havel's life very well. And but our aim, me and my co-writers, was not to make a biography or illustrated biography that would be just illustration of the events that happened to him. We wanted to create a drama, a personal drama, because I think that's the genre that suits the film storytelling best. And to create drama, we focused on the personal. And I don't think we skipped the politics altogether. We just took, what we did was we took from politics what shaped him, what formed him. And of course, to make it all into a film story under 2 hours, we had to make a lot of condensing, we call it. I don't know what would be the proper English term for it, but we call it condensing. Yeah. So we were using ellipses. We were collapsing two characters into one. In other, we were taking events that took place like a year apart and put them closer together to take place like 2 weeks apart, stuff like that, like the usual film stuff. And of course, what we were after was to keep, or not just to keep, but to dramatize the spirit of of the story, of Havel's story. And to do that, we took some liberties with historical facts, but we were always very, very careful about being faithful to the spirit of those events and of those facts, at least how we saw them, at least what we think is the spirit of them.
I was very impressed by the two main performances. Could you tell us how you selected the actor and actress for Václav and Olga Havel, and what kind of preparation did they go through?
Yeah, well, with Olga it was very simple because Anna Geislerová, who plays Olga, is simply by far the best actress of her generation here in Czech Republic. She's just amazing, and she even has similar features to Olga, so that was like a no-brainer. That was I didn't even do any casting. I just sent her the script, and luckily she loved it, and that was super easy. And with Havel, there was completely opposite story, completely different story, because no Czech actors even remotely resemble Havel, and I didn't want to give up the physical resemblance altogether. You know, I was still fighting. I still wanted Havel to at least look like Havel, you know. And after a long casting process, I was quite frustrated. We couldn't find him at all. And then my co-writer, he remembered that when he was in film school at Film Academy, he was sharing a room in dormitory with a guy who kind of looked like Havel, and he studied acting. But that was like 20, 25 years ago, and he's never heard about the guy again. So I completely, I didn't even try to look the guy up. But when I was really frustrated, then my first AD told me, listen, I was now doing a film called Prague Orgy, and there was a short scene with Havel in it. And the guy who came in as Havel, he was amazing. He really looks like Havel. He speaks like Havel. But I don't know if he's even an actor. Maybe he's just an extra in a good makeup, you know. And so I was so desperate that I said, okay, let's invite the guy. Turns out it's the same guy that my co-writer recommended me, that he shared a dormitory room with 20 years ago. And this guy just walks into the room, and it's him. And that's the guy in the film, Viktor Dvořák. So I was super lucky. And everybody who saw the film and knew Václav Havel well, they say it's an amazing performance, that he even walks like Václav Havel. I don't know how he does it. Of course, they were both watching a lot of videos. There is a lot of videos, documentaries on Václav and Olga. Not so much from the 70s because the cameras were scarce, but from later years. And they were also meeting people who knew Václav and Olga very well. And just talking to them, you know, asking about little personal things, little tics and stuff that is not known. Because of course, there are hundreds of hours of video material with Havel, but it's on camera, and of course people act differently when they know they're recorded. So they were after what's behind all the performance, or
Yeah. Well, I think that was very. I think they're very effective performances, and it's interesting that they went in for all that research. One of the things that puzzled me about the film, though, was that there are many characters in it who I recognize as, like Pavel Landowski, the actor, for instance, Pavel Kohout, the um, playwright and novelist, but they're not identified in the film. We don't know who they are. And I spent a lot of the film trying to work out who's this, who's that. That's a kind of mystery tour. And I discovered most of them, but not all of them. And I wondered why you seem to have almost deliberately not identified them. Why was that?
yeah, it was deliberate because we wanted the film to work without any knowledge of history whatsoever. So we just wanted, for example, in the character of Pavel Landowski, we just wanted to show you that this is Havel's friend, who is an actor, who is very wild, a complete opposite of Havel, who is very decent, and he's his buddy and sidekick, and that's all that you need to know to understand and enjoy the story. Yeah, regardless if his name is Landowski, or if it is Landowski, or if it's somebody else. So we just wanted the film to be, to work even for people who have absolutely no clue about those characters. So for us, basically, the perfect viewer would be somebody who doesn't have any political background, or perfect viewer. I mean, we wanted the film to work for these viewers too. And also the other reason was that, of course, we have respect for the real people who really went through a lot with Havel during the dissident years. And we knew that to make a film, we have to twist some facts. And of course, we have no idea what was said and done in certain situations. We were not in the room. Nobody, it was just them and Havel. Some of them are not alive anymore. Some of them think they were the stars of their own story, and Havel was just an accessory to that. So to avoid all this confusion with the real characters, we decided basically not to anchor them in real life or in real persons. Sometimes also we collapsed 2 or 3 characters into one. For example, Havel had different mistresses during the years. We collapsed them all into the character that Barbara Seidlova plays, into one lover who sort of represents all his lovers. Of course, there is a strong inspiration by one of his lovers, but yeah, there are traits of some other women too. So that's why.
One question there, which I'm sure somebody will ask, given that Havels committed to morality and right conduct, shall we say, and is known for that, and he's written a great deal about it, doesn't his private life kind of undermine that image a bit?
Well, that's where we saw the main conflict. That's where we saw our drama. That in political life he was super straight, but in private life he was sort of, let's say, very bohemian, to put it mildly, and exactly that discrepancy, that's what appealed to us. That's where I saw. So we built the story in a way that he has to learn, that he only has one conscience. And that applies to both. Or if he learns to listen to that conscience both in politics and in private life, then he will become a whole person and he will reach wholeness. So it's easier for him to do in politics, even because even if he stumbles, even in politics, and signs something that he's not very proud of, then he works on it and overcomes it. And but it's more difficult for him in private life. That's why there is so much of his private life, because you know, it's I don't want to just see a hero who is fearless and never stumbles in a film. You know, he's just like going straight to his goal, to stardom, or you know.
I'd like to just ask some questions about the if you like, the filmic aspects. One of the you just mentioned the signing documents. One of the things which is very striking about the film is the number of times we're presented with a blank page and a pen, and the question mark, as it were. Is he going to sign? Is he not going to sign? How did you intend us to receive that notion?
Well, it was intended as a quite simple, but I hope effective symbol of like a recurring motif. I didn't want it the paper to be like a symbol of his conscience or something like that. No, it's just it's just like a motif of a crossroad that every time he's presented with a blank sheet of paper, it's like it's his way of becoming hero or coward, you know, and there is no other option. Either he signs, or he refuses, or he uses the blank paper to write something meaningful, or he can't do it, you know. So, and since he was a playwright originally, it was like natural for him to be faced with a blank page. You know, we even start the film after a brief intro. We even start the film with him putting a blank page into the typewriter, you know, which sort of starts the whole thing, and it ends up when the blank page reminds him with the final confrontation with Dubček of what he's been through, you know, the whole film, and it reminds us that he's got the moral right to chase them on the balcony and become a president. And so, yeah, it's just a motif reminder of choices that he's facing, and of how these choices can pop up quite unexpectedly. For example, when he's released from the first prison where he failed and signed a humiliating document, he's in the restaurant with Landowski, and they meet a former friend who is now collaborating, who asked them to spit in his face. And Havel is facing not a blank sheet of paper, but a blank napkin, which reminds him, I hope you read it this way too, which reminds him of his own failure. So suddenly the scene for me is doubly charged. That it's not only they're humiliating the former friend, but Havel himself is humiliated, and he knows that he's no better at the moment than the former friend who's collaborating. So
I must say, I thought it was even received it as a wider comment, because I think the film be very close to the beginning after the Russian invasion. He's invited to sign a document in order to have his work published, and somebody says it's only a signature, and that seems to be almost the theme. But that must resonate with the population as a whole, because so many people had to sign that signature in order to carry on, you know. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, and I think it's still, you know, the same today, because sometimes you're just forced, be it in your job or in your you know, in your work life, you're forced to sign documents, for example, not, I don't know, revealing this or giving up some of your freedoms to get the job, or, you know, stuff like that. It still happens. So I just hope that it's universal. It's not just a specific thing for totalitarian regimes that are over now.
Another thing that I liked about the film was the way in which you suddenly converted the real image into a theatrical image. I wasn't quite sure what the objective was, but I thought it worked very well. Was that just to say, well, this guy's a playwright?
No, no, it was more like we were trying to get into his head, you know,
Mm,
trying to
mm,
show visually how he perceives a given scene, you know.
mm,
And since he's a playwright, and even from his writing, we know that he was well aware that quite often his life resembled one of his absurd plays, you know, because
mm,
there was a lot of absurdity and irony in all his life, being faced with a stupid regime and knowing that he's right and can't prove it, and these things. So since this is a story of his personal development, of his personal journey, of his transformation, we wanted to get into his head as much as we could.
mm,
And we thought it's a good idea to show what's actually how he perceives the given scene. And also, we only used this gimmick 3 times, and
mm,
we put it in the key plot points where the major twists are. First, when he decides to become a human rights activist, basically when he sees the trial as a staged play, which of course in a very naive way, all the communist trials were staged trials. It was all a charade, a farce,
mm,
basically.
mm,
But that's not the main point. I mean, that would be just naive, you know, illustration of that point. But we wanted to see that it really uh, uh, propelled him into action. And
mm,
when he leaves the court, he's handing out cigarettes, and he's basically picking up people to start a movement. And then, of course, the second time when he fails and signs the humiliating document in a custody, and he suddenly realizes that he's on stage and he's being laughed at because, from what we know from his diaries, he was he really thought that he's not he hasn't done anything wrong, that he was just being clever or outsmarting the communists,
mm,
outsmarting the secret police by signing this document that he will give up all political activity. But once he did it, he realized that he outsmarted only himself, that he
mm,
can't escape his conscience on that. And the third time we go to theater is when he decides to take on him the 4 years in jail,
mm.
because he would not be sentenced if he didn't want to. So he took it up on him. So, and there was also, I don't know, I would like to ask you if you perceived it in this way, that there is also a certain gradation in those three theater scenes. In the first one, he's just a spectator. Okay, he's just a viewer. In the second one, he's an actor in it, but he doesn't even know about it. So he's like a puppet, an actor
Mm,
in a
mm,
play. In the third one, he's directing the play. He took his own
mm,
destiny
mm,
into his own hands, and now he decides about his fate, even
mm.
by putting himself in prison. It's his decision. He's the director of the play on the stage. Is it there? Did you perceive
Mm.
it in at
Oh,
least unconsciously?
partially. So the answer is partially, I think. But I think
Okay,
it's very interesting that, you
that is
know,
right.
that you had that intention there. And again, you have to pick it up. There's only, as far as I recall, there's only one extract from one of his plays, which was Audience towards the beginning. And again, we don't know what the play is, but
Yeah.
it's about his life in the brewery and so on. But something to detect again. I'd like to ask, because obviously, probably, I think both you and most of your team will have been people who will have been born after some of these
Yeah.
events. So how did you sort of try to re-evoke the period, you know, recreate the period? And I think you used various different sort of stylistic, different images, different times, different styles.
Yeah. Yeah, we were visually we were trying to do the 60s in the sort of 60s style, 70s in the 70s styles, and then the revolution in 1989 in a sort of documentary found footage late 80s style. But that was just, you know, to make it easier for people to understand what time they are in, even though it's a linear story, so it's quite simple. But yeah, as you said, I was born in 1975, so that was like 2 years before Havel started Charter 77, and which was in 1977. But I still remember I was 14, almost 15 when the revolution came in 1989. I already started high school. I was 3 months on a high school when the revolution came. And I still remember living in a small town. Nevertheless, I still remember that feeling, that overwhelming feeling that you can't ever speak up your mind, because if you do, you're punished and you will never get to good school or anything. So even in our family, which was not communist at all, I mean, they despised communists, and we were talking freely at home. But of course, in their jobs, me in my school, we could not say anything. And I remember, of course, we were force-fed propaganda that we have to love the Russians. And so, of course, as kids who were 12, 13, we were rebelling against it. So we were always like, oh, fuck Russians. And we were writing it on the desks just to be rebels, you know, not really understanding all of it. But I remember all the punishments. They were even the head principal in my elementary school in a small town, he took it so seriously. You know, and there was also like bad grades and everything. So I do have I think I do have a feeling for what was it like. That is the first thing. The second thing, of course, once we started all the research and we were reading about all these things in depth, you know, what was happening in Prague, what was happening to dissidents, how the movement was organized, how they were prosecuted. And it's fascinating read. I mean, it would be great TV series. I would love to watch these times for hours and hours on, but we wanted to do a drama, a single film. So that's how actually we came to feel the period. But I think the main feeling was from what I remembered, you know, this fear. That you can't speak up your mind, that you always have to twist your words and always have to shut up and say what's supposed to be said instead of what you really think.
Well, I think that's really interesting, the kind of different ways you've approached the film and the sort of depths that you've gone into there. I'm just wondering how Czech audiences have received the film, and have they got all these nuances?
Well, it's of course there was a lot of attention when we released the film. The thing is that the audiences actually, if they they're, of course, everybody is expert on Havel in Czech Republic, so that was difficult. Everybody knows how to make much better film about Havel than we did, of course, and especially since we didn't go the easiest way, just to illustrate it by biopic. You know, that would be probably okay with them, but this they were quite surprised. The box office was good. I mean, it was given the times, we sold like 160,000 tickets. Which, given the time, was okay. I think it was like the third biggest film of the summer, and we were bigger than Tenet, okay, which was released simultaneously, but not by much though. But the critical response was, on one hand, there were critics who praised the bravery of a different approach to Havel, praising it for being personal, for being it basically a romance. But of course there were a lot of super intellectual critics who just hated it because there was not enough politics. There was even a petition against the film among some critics and public figures who were basically saying that the film destroys the symbol of Havel, and but people who actually did know Havel, like people who still work in Václav Havel library and who were his friends for decades. They say that Havel would he never wanted to be a symbol, you know, he was a human being. And while the film may not portray Václav Havel as they knew him, they respect our right to artistic license, and they understand it's not a documentary. Second, it's not a, you know, communist state approved celebratory film, you know, about it's not a Stalin like ode to cult of to the cult, you know. So there was a lot of emotions.
Well, that's good. I think we're going to have to finish there because of time factors. But this film, I guess, will provoke even more discussion. I mean, we could easily go on for another half hour. And that's great, because if you produced you know, an orthodox movie, people would just leave it. So and there will be much more to be said about Havel, I guess. So I'd like to thank you, Slávek, and wish you all the best with the film. And just to remind everybody that this film is the first of the Made in Prague Czech Film Festival in London, and there are many more to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Helen. Bye-bye.
Bye.